Welcome to the Country Watch Political Intelligence Briefing, Quick Hits, a weekly briefing of hot stories across the world in brief. I'm Denise Youngblood Coleman, and I'm the Senior International Affairs Analyst and Editor-in-Chief at Country Watch. This week, the United States is the featured country with regard to Afghanistan policy. President Joe Biden announced that he will withdraw all United States forces from Afghanistan after a 2 decades-long presence in that country. The United States has been fighting a war in Afghanistan since the aftermath of the September 11th, 2001 terror attacks by al-Qaeda on the Twin Towers and the Pentagon. But now, in 2021, on the 20th anniversary of the terror attacks, President Biden was saying that the United States military presence in Afghanistan would come to an end. The president said that the withdrawal would occur without conditions and would commence in May on a phased basis, with the last of the United States troops exiting by September 11th. In a speech in which he formally announced the decision, President Biden dispensed with the notion of an endless engagement in Afghanistan, asserting, and I quote, "War in Afghanistan was never meant to be a multi-generational undertaking. We were attacked. We went to war with clear goals. We achieved those objectives. Bin Laden is dead and al-Qaeda is degraded. It's time to end the forever war," unquote. He added, and again I quote, "I am now the 4th United States president to preside over American troop presence in Afghanistan. 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. I will not pass this responsibility on to a 5th, unquote. President Biden's decision for a full exit without conditions came despite the fact that the Pentagon leadership had advocated for maintaining a small residual presence of special operations forces and paramilitary advisors on the ground. But Biden did what 3 previous presidents, Bush, Obama, and Trump, had not. He vitiated the advice of the generals with his own judgment that it was time to bring American participation in Afghanistan to an end. Former military officials had opposing opinions on this move. According to Defense One, David Petraeus, the former CIA chief and commander of US troops in Afghanistan, said, "I'm really afraid that we're going to look back 2 years ago and regret this decision." The reality, however, was that President Biden's decision on Afghanistan should have come as no surprise. Indeed, President Biden has long viewed Afghanistan as a dangerous quagmire. In his recent memoir, former President Obama recounted a meeting with his then vice president about the issue of Afghanistan. According to Obama's telling, Biden said to him, "Maybe I've been around this town for too long, but one thing I know is that these generals are trying to box in a new president." Then Obama said Biden leaned in and stage whispered to him, "Don't let them jam you." Biden has not allowed himself to be jammed into a multi-generational Afghanistan strategy by the generals, and he has done so while knowing the stakes. To this end, he has said, and I quote, "I'm the first president in 40 years who knows what it means to have a child serve in a war zone," unquote. The critics of the Biden Afghanistan policy will no doubt point to the threat of resurgent Islamic jihadist terrorists. This remains and will remain a genuine and serious risk. But in 2021, the threat posed by Islamist jihadist terrorists is spread out across the globe. No longer based in Kandahar, Africa's Sahel region presents a far more active al-Qaeda Islamic State arena than Afghanistan. As well, Boko Haram operates in Nigeria, and Somalia-based al-Shabaab could conceivably be considered a bigger threat right now than al-Qaeda, as illustrated by an attack on United States forces in Kenya by al-Shabaab in 2020. Meanwhile, with the ongoing war in Yemen, its more forgotten mountain terrains offer a far more neglected terrain for extremists to gather. Thus, to retain forces in a country that is no longer the epicenter of Islamist jihadist terrorism is not in keeping with smart, agile defense in a world where the threats are now widely dispersed. Moving on to other aspects of US foreign policy, the United States announced that it was imposing sanctions on Moscow and expelling 10 Russian diplomats as a response to Russia's interference in the United States elections and the SolarWinds cyber attack. Via executive order, President Joe Biden issued these moves while simultaneously offering to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin with an intent to de-escalate tensions. I also want to cover Russia with regard to Ukraine. Since March 2021, Russian President Vladimir Putin has been amassing troops along Russia's western border with Ukraine. As noted by White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, there are more Russian troops in the region now than in the run-up to Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. Russia already annexed Crimea and later Donbass. Now the question arose as to whether Putin's endgame might be with these latest moves. Clearly, respecting Ukrainian sovereignty was not something that the world could assume from the Russian leader. It was possible that the buildup of Russian forces on the border with Ukraine was intended to deliver a message from Putin to Biden that Russia regards Ukraine to be within its orbit. Another possibility was that the buildup of Russian forces on the border with Ukraine was a precursor to the introduction of Russian peacekeepers there to, and I quote, protect the Russians living in occupied Donbass. A third rationale could be that Moscow is placing pressure on Kiev to implement the 2015 Minsk framework, which would convey special status to occupied Luhansk and Donetsk in eastern Ukraine in exchange for a permanent ceasefire and pullback of military forces from the region. For its part, Ukraine is forging ahead with robust diplomatic overtures to its allies, seeking assurances that other countries would support Ukraine's territorial integrity. President Zelensky has pleaded with the international community, and particularly the United States, to offer assistance and support in more than just statements. He has said Ukraine needs more than just words. In Burma, also known as Myanmar, where protesters continue to take to the streets in defiance against the military, the death toll is rising. In the second week of April, the country's military, the Tatmadaw, opened fire using rocket-propelled grenades, fragmentation grenades, and mortars on protesters, killing more than 82 people in Bago. Noting that the situation in Burma, also known as Myanmar, could well proceed down the grim path of Syria, Michelle Bachelet, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, said, "I fear that the situation in Myanmar is headed towards a full-blown conflict. States must not allow the deadly mistakes of the past in Syria and elsewhere to be repeated." Bachelet also urged countries with international influence to take rapid and powerful steps to end the slaughter of civilians, noting that statements of condemnation and limited targeted sanctions are clearly not enough. For more information about these and other stories, read my political intelligence briefing and my coronavirus report, both of which are accessible from the front page of the Country Watch website at www.countrywatch.com. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. And remember, as ever, we live in an interconnected world.